The fluorescent lights buzz overhead as Emma Rodriguez counted the cash register for the third time that night. Minimum wage, maximum struggle. But in 18 months, this same girl will be standing on the stage at Madison Square Garden, speaking to 20,000 people. The same girl who couldn't order pizza without breaking down would become one of the most sought-after motivational speakers in America. This is her story. Emma Rodriguez was 23 years old, working the graveyard shift at Murphy's gas station in Phoenix, Arizona. Every single night was the same routine. Scan items, make change, watch drunk people argue about lottery tickets. But Emma carried a burden that made even the simplest interactions torture. She had been stuttering since she was 5 years old. Not just a little stutter that comes and goes. We're talking about a stutter so severe that ordering food at McDonald's would leave her in tears. Kids at Jefferson Elementary called her Broken Record Rodriguez because she'd repeat the same sound 15, 20 times before getting a word out. Be broken. That was Emma. Her parents, Maria and Carlos Rodriguez, tried everything. Speech therapy, breathing exercises, even took her to 3 different doctors. Nothing worked. By middle school, Emma had developed what psychologists call selective mutism. She simply stopped talking unless absolutely necessary. Teachers would skip over her during roll call because they knew calling on Emma meant the entire class would have to wait. High school was worse. While other kids were joining debate team and drama club, Emma ate lunch alone in the library. She'd watch through the windows as her classmates laughed and talked effortlessly, wishing she could just say one sentence without her tongue betraying her. But here's where Emma's story gets interesting. After graduation, while her classmates went off to college, Emma took the only job she could get. The night shift at Murphy's gas station paid $9.50 an hour. Most nights, between midnight and 6 a.m., maybe 20 customers would come through. That meant hours and hours of complete silence. And in that silence, something magical started happening. Emma began talking to herself, not just thinking out loud, but having full conversations. She'd pretend customers were asking her questions, and she'd respond. At first, the stutter was still there, but something about being alone, with no judgment, no pressure, made it easier. Night after night, month after month, Emma practiced. She'd read magazines out loud. She'd recite movie quotes. She'd even practiced giving acceptance speeches for awards she'd never win. The empty aisles of Murphy's gas station became her personal speaking arena. Then came October 15th, 2019, the night that changed everything. It was 2:47 a.m. when Marcus Thompson walked through those glass doors. Marcus wasn't your typical late-night customer. He was wearing a $5,000 suit at 3 in the morning, talking loudly on his phone about some business deal. Marcus Thompson was a millionaire entrepreneur, the kind of guy who turned small companies into empires. He grabbed a Red Bull and some gum, still on his phone call, as he approached the counter. Emma could hear fragments of his conversation. He was frustrated, talking about finding the right spokesperson for his new company. Someone authentic, someone real. Marcus ended his call and looked at Emma, really looked at her. Most customers barely made eye contact, but Marcus was different. "Long night?" he asked. Emma's throat tightened. This was the moment she always dreaded, speaking to strangers. But something about Marcus seemed genuine. "Why, yes, sir," she managed to get out. Instead of looking uncomfortable like most people did when they heard her stutter, Marcus smiled. "You know, I've been in meetings all day with people who talk perfectly but say absolutely nothing meaningful. Sometimes the most important words come from the most unexpected places." Emma didn't know what to say to that, so she just smiled and handed him his change. But Marcus didn't leave. He stood there for a moment, then pulled out a business card. "I know this might sound crazy," he said, "but I run a company that helps people overcome their biggest challenges. We're always looking for real stories, real people. If you ever want to talk about your experience, give me a call." Emma took the card with shaking hands. Marcus Thompson, CEO of Breakthrough Solutions. For 3 weeks, that card sat on Emma's nightstand. Every night after work, she'd stare at it. What would she even say? How could someone like her help anyone? But on November 7th, 2019, Emma's life took another turn. A regular customer, Mrs. Patterson, came in around 4 a.m. Mrs. Patterson was in her 70s, and Emma had noticed she'd been coming in more and more frequently, always buying just small items she clearly didn't need. This particular night, Mrs. Patterson was crying. "Are you okay?" Emma asked, and for the first time in months, the words came out smooth. Mrs. Patterson looked up, surprised. "Oh, honey, I'm sorry. I shouldn't burden you with my problems." Please," Emma said. "I'm here all night anyway." Mrs. Patterson sat down on the plastic chair by the coffee machine and started talking. Her husband of 52 years had passed away 6 months earlier. She was lonely, scared, and didn't know how to live without him. She'd been coming to the gas station just to have someone to say hello to. Emma listened, really listened, and then something incredible happened. Emma started talking back. Not just polite responses, but real conversation. She told Mrs. Patterson about losing her grandmother, about feeling scared and alone. Her stutter was still there, but somehow it didn't matter. They talked for 2 hours. When Mrs. Patterson left, she hugged Emma and said, "Thank you for seeing me, for really seeing me." That morning, Emma drove home with tears in her eyes. Not tears of sadness, but of realization. She had just experienced the most meaningful conversation of her entire life. And it happened because she stopped focusing on how she sounded and started focusing on what she was saying. That night, Emma called Marcus Thompson. "Emma from the gas station," she said when he answered. Her voice was shaking, but she pushed through. "I think I have a story to tell." Marcus invited her to coffee the next day. Emma almost didn't show up. She sat in her car outside the Starbucks for 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel. But she went in, and she told Marcus everything. About the bullying, about the silence, about Mrs. Patterson. She talked for an hour straight, stuttering through some parts, but never stopping. When she finished, Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Emma," he said finally, "I've heard 1,000 success stories from people who had everything handed to them. But I've never heard anyone talk about overcoming something so personal, so real. People need to hear this." Marcus offered Emma something that seemed impossible. He wanted her to record a video about her experience. Nothing fancy, just her talking about her journey. He'd share on his company's social media. See what happened. Emma's first instinct was to say no. Record a video? Her, on camera, stuttering for the world to see? But then she thought about Mrs. Patterson, sitting alone in her house, feeling invisible. "Okay," she whispered. They recorded the video the following weekend. Emma sat in front of the simple white background, no makeup, wearing a regular t-shirt. Marcus asked her one question. "Tell people what you wish someone had told you when you were 15. Emma looked directly into the camera and started talking. "And my name is Emma Rodriguez, and I've been hiding my voice my entire life. Not because I don't have anything to say, but because I was ashamed of how I sounded when I said it." She talked for 12 minutes. About the bullying, about the isolation, about working nights at a gas station, and finally finding her voice in the silence. She talked about Mrs. Patterson, and about realizing that connection isn't about perfect words. It's about honest ones. The video ended with Emma saying, "Your voice matters. Even if it shakes, even if it stutters, even if it's different from everyone else's, especially then." Marcus uploaded the video on a Tuesday morning in December 2019. By Wednesday, it had 10,000 views. By Friday, it had hit 100,000. The comments section was flooded with people sharing their own stories of overcoming speech challenges, social anxiety, and feeling different. But the real breakthrough came 3 weeks later. Sarah Mitchell, a producer from TED Talks, reached out to Marcus. She'd seen Emma's video and wanted to know if Emma would be interested in giving a TED Talk. Emma's first response was laughter. Actual laughter. "A TED Talk? Me?" But Sarah was serious. "Emma, your story is exactly what people need to hear right now. In a world full of polished, perfect presentations, your authenticity is revolutionary." Emma spent the next 4 months preparing for her TED Talk, not trying to eliminate her stutter, but learning to work with it. She practiced with a speaking coach named David Chun, who specialized in helping people with speech differences become powerful public speakers. David's approach was different from every speech therapist Emma had ever worked with. Instead of trying to fix her stutter, he taught her to use it as a tool for emphasis, for connection, for authenticity. Emma, David said during one of their sessions, the pause before you say a word isn't a failure. It's anticipation. It makes people lean in, listen more carefully. On March 15, 2020, Emma Rodriguez walked onto the TED Talk stage in Austin, Texas. 500 people in the audience, millions more who would eventually watch online. She stood at the podium, looked out at the sea of faces, and began. 3 years ago, I couldn't order a pizza without crying. Today, I'm standing here because I learned something that changed everything. Your biggest weakness might actually be your greatest strength. Emma's TED Talk, titled The Power of Imperfect Communication, became one of the most watched talks of 2020. 15 million views and counting. Companies started reaching out, wanting Emma to speak to their employees about authenticity, resilience, and finding strength in vulnerability. But Emma's story doesn't end there. She left Murphy's gas station and started her own company, Authentic Voices, helping people with speech differences, social anxiety, and communication challenges find their confidence. Within a year, Authentic Voices was generating over $2 million in revenue. Emma hired Mrs. Patterson as her first employee, putting her in charge of customer outreach. She opened speaking workshops in 12 cities across the country. Then came the biggest opportunity of all. Live Nation, the company that manages Madison Square Garden, invited Emma to be the opening speaker for their annual leadership conference. September 23, 2021, Madison Square Garden, 20,000 people in the audience. Emma walked onto that stage wearing the same simple style she'd always worn. No fancy dress, no dramatic lighting. Just Emma, with her authentic voice and her powerful story. She began the same way she began her TED Talk. Takes 3 years ago, I couldn't order a pizza without crying. But this time, she continued, today, I'm here to tell you that the voice you're afraid to use might be exactly the voice the world needs to hear. For 45 minutes, Emma held that audience captivated. She talked about Mrs. Patterson, about Marcus Thompson, about every person who had taught her that connection isn't about perfection. The standing ovation lasted 7 minutes. Today, Emma Rodriguez is booked for speaking events 18 months in advance. Her company, Authentic Voices, has helped over 50,000 people find confidence in their communication. She's written a best-selling book, Stutter Steps to Success, and has been featured on every major talk show. But if you ask Emma what she's most proud of, she won't tell you about the money or the fame or the sold-out venues. She'll tell you about the letter she got last month from a 16-year-old girl named Jessica in Ohio. Jessica had seen Emma's TED Talk and decided to try out for her school's debate team, Stutter and all. She made the team and won her first competition. Emma still has that letter pinned to the wall above her desk, right next to Marcus Thompson's original business card, and a photo of her and Mrs. Patterson at Emma's book launch. Sometimes the most powerful voices are the ones that take a little longer to find their words. Sometimes the people who struggle the most to speak have the most important things to say. Emma Rodriguez learned that your differences aren't obstacles to overcome. They're superpowers waiting to be unleashed. Her voice changed everything, not because it was perfect, but because it was perfectly her own. And if Emma Rodriguez can go from hiding behind a gas station counter to commanding stages around the world, imagine what you can do when you finally decide to use your voice exactly as it is. The fluorescent lights at Murphy's gas station still buzz overhead every night, but now they illuminate a different kind of story. Because sometimes the most extraordinary journeys begin in the most ordinary places. All it takes is one person brave enough to speak up, stutter and all,